Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with continuing off the Soul Sisters matchups that we were playing yesterday. We're currently 2-0. You can go back on yesterday's video and look at those matches and see if we can actually win a 5-0 with Soul Sisters. Feeling pretty good about this list. Definitely going to keep this. We do have a strong Ajani's Strength of Pride hand with the Martyr of Sands. Still don't even know if the Martyr of Sands is the right build that I'd like to go with this deck. I'm thinking about going back to Legion's Landing and Archangel Thune to get the life total up for Ajani. That might be a better route to go. Inquisition is probably going to take a Soul Attendant. Maybe they're going to take the Martyr. It can't take the two Rangers. So Marsh Flats into Snow-Covered Swamp could be literally any deck. I wonder if there's a Scrying Sheets black deck out there. But Inquisition, yeah, probably will take a Soul Attendant is the card I would take. Take the Martyr. I think that's a mistake. I think the Soul Attendant is better in this hand. Maybe they are worried about Ajani. But anyway, let's go ahead, especially when you top deck an Ajani. Now the Soul Attendant is much better. So I have a hard time thinking that they have another Inquisition in their hand to throw it out because I have all known information out. So let's see if they do. Just going to be okay, this is Mardu Pyromancer. And we typically have a pretty good matchup versus Mardu Pyromancer here. So going to go ahead and throw out the Pridemate. And it's actually going to be very tough for them to kill unless they have a Terminate or a Fatal Push, because Lightning Bolt or Lightning Helix is not going to be able to kill the Ajani's Pridemate now with the Young Pyromancer. Because the trigger will happen first, they'll create a token and then Ajani Pridemate will get huge. So we do need to draw into more lands for Ajani's Strength of Pride. Opponent can still kill a Soul Attendant and be in pretty decent shape. I think they typically do run some amount of Terminates. Kozilek's or what's the Dragon Lord? Kolaghan's Command is typically in the list. But it's usually Lightning Bolt they use as one of the removal spells, and Path to Exile. So I'm okay with this being pathed, the Pridemate being pathed, because then we go get a land for the Ranger of Eos / Ajani's Strength of Pride, and we do need to win this match in card advantage. They really do need to kill that Soul Attendant as quickly as possible as well. So another Young Pyromancer. Oh, that's juicy. And there's the Bolt. I don't wonder why my opponent decided to go that route, playing the Pyromancer first and then the Bolt. Wanted the additional Elemental, possibly. But again, we're in great shape with the 6/6. Gonna keep it back as a blocker. We have a Ghost Quarters here, and we'll run out the Squadron Hawk. This thins out our deck, plus gives us some good cards if we hit another Martyr. And grab those and then pass the turn. I don't think we attack the Pridemate, just gets rid of an Elemental. Yeah, we'll just pass it. So now Path to Exile is terrible on the Ajani's Pridemate. Needs to have a Fatal Push or a Terminate. Only 3 cards left in hand. Our opponent must have mulliganed. Thoughtseize. Thoughtseize can get a Ranger. Again, not terrible for us because it's still a card for a card. Or opponent can go get Ajani's Strength of Pride. I mean, either of them are viable. Does decide to go for the Ranger. I'm actually thinking that Ajani's more powerful than a Ranger here. My opponent disagrees. So there's a Serra Ascendant, which we'll go ahead and throw out. And I'll do another Squadron Hawk. And there's no point to search here. And we'll go ahead and attack in with a Squadron Hawk. Tons of value off those Young Pyromancers. Pretty bad luck that our opponent has 2 Young Pyromancers and we have 1 Soul Sister. Kills the Serra Ascendant at the cost of a Lightning Bolt. And now Faithless Looting is going to spit out some more tokens and definitely help our opponent set up their hand. We do have this good blocker. I think at this point my opponent does start attacking with elementals. I'm going to block with the Squadron Hawks though. I don't know, maybe that might be wrong. If we get this Ranger of Eos, like if we can hit the land and get another Ranger of Eos. That's 2 Soul Sisters we get, and then our opponent just is miserable. 2 young Pyromancers. We start to gain so much life. So it'll be interesting. Opponent throws a Lightning Skelemental and a Smiting Helix. So 3 damage and gain 3 life. There is a flashback on the Smiting Helix. Opponent does not have mana this turn. So they're definitely better than those two. And they're going to unearth a Lightning Skelemental, which, when it deals combat damage to a player, that player discards 2 cards, huh? So we can discard 2. Jeez, I have to kill some of these stupid elementals. Just so many elementals coming our way. So Squadron Hawk is just going to have to block one. And we'll just discard 2 Squad Hawks. Not a big deal. These elementals are going to be a pain to deal with. So hopefully we can hit the land. We do not hit a land, but that's almost as good with the Soul Warden to get our Pridemate up a little bit bigger. The Soul Warden most likely should die to the Helix being flashbacked. Faithless Looting can also be flashbacked if our opponent has a land in. But yeah, I need to find that Ranger ASAP. Yeah, did see that coming. But now we can block Lightning Skelementals. Opponent's going to continue to come in with the Elementals. I do need to make the blocks to try to keep these down. But that is a lot of Elementals. All right, Ranger. Martyr of Sands. Still not a card I wanted, unfortunately. I think we're just going to die if our opponent just continues to get spells. Even at this point, if our opponent can just Faithless Looting back whatever is in their hand. Yeah, I'm going to lose this one. Very unfortunate. A Auriok Champion just wins the game for us. We get out of reach with our opponent making elemental tokens. A land, of course, finds a Ranger of Eos and then finds 2 Soul Sisters, which also gets us ahead. It's just, yeah, pretty unfortunate. We didn't hit that 4th land. And once again, we will block and not block with the Martyr. Go down to a 4. That way, if we do, for whatever reason, get a Collective Brutality. So now we need to fire it off, I think. And opponent, yeah, maybe I didn't need to fire it off. All right, land or bust. It is a Mistveil Plains, and unfortunately that's going to come into play tapped, and we die to the young Pyromancers. So our opponent draws more young Pyromancers than we do Soul Sisters. I don't need Rest in Pieces in this particular matchup or anything. I'm not even going to change a card. The problem is my opponent's deck does get a little bit better depending on if they have cards that do interact with us. They could have access to the Plague Engineer that can give all creatures -1/-1, or name a type and give them -1/-1. That could be a bit of an issue. There's lots of things our opponent could bring in. However, I've played this matchup actually a ton. I did play Soul Sisters when Mardu Pyromancer was a thing, and it tends to be a pretty easy matchup. That was with the Archangel of Thune version, and again, I'm thinking I like that version better than the Martyr of Sands. So going that version, you take out Squadron Hawks and Martyr of Sands and put in Legion's Landing and Archangel of Thune, and it gives. And a little higher on the Soul Sister. I think you run a full package of 4/4/4. So 4 Soul Wardens, 4 Soul Attendants, and 4 Auriok Champions. And that allows you just to have a lot of life gain instances. And again, when I was building this deck, I was debating how to build it with Ajani Strength of Pride, if I wanted to maximize the value of the -2 or maximize the value of the 0. And I chose to maximize the value of the 0, hence the Martyr of Sands. And I'm wondering if that's the right call, or if going Archangel Thune is better in the current meta. All right, yes, we'd like to play first. we're kind of in the same bin as we were. Our opponent does have ways to... I still think it's keepable. We have a lot of cards we can... I'd love a first turn Thoughtseize or first turn Inquisition would be just awesome. We'll hope my opponent goes first turn Inquisition. Wait, Inquisition does hit 4s, correct? Or is it 3 or less? Can't even remember. It's been forever since I played Modern. But our opponent does mulligan to 6 cards, so we're waiting on our opponent to choose a card to put on the bottom. And Force of Virtue might be okay if our opponent did bring in the hate for just giving all creatures -1, -1. But typically they can bring in like Pyroclasm type cards. So Thoughtseize. Thoughtseize can take a Ranger, which is okay. No young Pyromancer out. I'm definitely okay with making these trades. Our sideboard can be made better for these particular decks by bringing like Return to the Rank type cards. However, I don't know. I think keeping a 3-lander is good. We had a Pridemate here. It's probably going to get bolted. So if I get stuck on this 3-land again with 2/3 drops in my hand, I'm going to be very disappointed. Sacred Foundry. Hopefully it's not a young Pyromancer. It is a young Pyromancer. Gotta be joking me. Can find Pyromancers better than I can find Soul Attendants. Alright, so there's a Soul Attendant though. That's good. And we'll put out another. And then go ahead and attack in with Ajani. It's Pridemate. And I'd hate to exile a card, but how good is Ajani now for Force of Virtue coming in for free? Yeah, probably not worth it. 4 mana, 4 mana, 4 mana. So not a lot of 4 mana cards left in our deck. If my opponent does Lightning Helix it, though, we will make the trade. So it's a Thoughtseize. Opponent probably should take the other Ranger, I would suspect. Yep. Now a bullet will not kill the Ajani's Pridemate. Land for one stinking time. I'd like to hit a land. So Path to Exile, there's my land. But it comes into play tapped. So, I have some options if my opponent does start attacking in. We can actually exile Ajani's Pridemate for Force of Virtue. I don't know if that's the right... No, I'll just take the damage. But we do get Ajani's Strength of Pride out next turn. And then probably just -2. Puts it in Lightning Bolt range, but it'll be a big... It'll be a 3/3 at that point. Smiting Helix on the Soul's Attendant. And getting run over by these elementals again. And all my Rangers are in the bin. Now I'm going to start drawing garbage because I don't need it. Yep, there's the land. Because we need a land, of course. So we'll go ahead and Ajani. And we'll create a 2/2. Which, that just gets Smiting Helix back, right? Ugh. Yeah, unfortunately that's that. So, pretty good card in their list. Found the Young Pyromancers both games. And we do... lose the Ajani here. And take some damage. And I told you, when it rains, it pours. We'll get another Ajani and now draw every land in our deck when we don't need the lands, because that's how Magic works. And I think we're going to get our first loss, but I will play this matchup all day long. It's typically a matchup we can beat. Both games, if the Young Pyromancer didn't come out on time, or in the case of last matchup, twice on time. Jeez. But, like, the only card that would really get us out of this is Ranger, and we've already been 2 of them. So I'm pretty sure it's over. You know what? Auriok Champion wouldn't be terrible. So Johnny goes down. Young Pyromancer gets out of control. Thoughtseize, Pathway, so a Lightning Bolt. And we take some more damage. Squadron Hawk wouldn't be terrible either. And finds the Thoughtseize number 3 to take out my Force of Virtue. Maybe I should just cast the Fortune. Nah, that probably was Ajani was still the right one. Well, speak of the devil. There's Auriok Champion. It's going to take care of a little bit of the bleeding. Ranger of Eos actually gets us back in this game if we draw a Ranger. If we draw another Ajani's Pridemate, it's also pretty good. Lightning Skelemental. I mean, I'm taking damage. So we'll block the elemental. Go to 3. So now I really need to draw a card. Serra Ascendant actually sort of gets us there. No, I still believe we die. No, we don't. We do die to the Unearth for this, so I'll go on to the next one. So, gross. Play the next one. So we do drop a match, which is funny because I think we beat 2 decks that were more difficult than Mardu Pyromancer to beat. The deck is very dependent on hitting that Young Pyromancer quick if they're going to have any sort of hope. And for both those games, they're very low on the Soul Sisters. Possibly should have mulliganed game number 2 for a better hand. Like, maybe just even mulligan for the Auriok Champion. Because Auriok Champion is just miserable for their deck to beat. But I would like to have, sideboard options. We're very, very... Maybe I should have brought Rest in Peace versus that matchup. So now we're going to go through this. Oh, this is what makes Magic so frustrating. So we off to a good start. And now the mulligans are going to... This is not a good hand either. I'm going to keep it. Now we're going to throw the Martyr of Sands away and start off with the Mistveil Plains, most likely on our turn. I don't want to go down land count. Goblin Guide. Okay, if there's a matchup that we are built to beat, it's this one. I don't like throwing away that anymore. We have a Soul Attendant coming up, though. That's awesome. So I won't go Mistveil Plains. We'll throw just a regular Plains in and a Soul Attendant, and that will at least kill off a bolt, and we'll mull quite aggressively for our champion on subsequent games. So Scalding Tarn is probably just in here for landfall triggers, for Searing Blazes. Hopefully Goblin Guide can start getting junk out of our way here with lands. And it's a Serra Ascendant that's coming up. So... Pridemate probably will just die to a bolt, but that might be worthwhile. If we Mistveil Plains and Serra's Ascendant, is that just better? I'm going to Plains Ajani Pridemate. So I'm wondering if my opponent's going to bolt off the Serra Ascendant. Searing Blaze. Okay. Pass the turn. So Soul Sisters can lose this game 1. It's very difficult to lose this match, though, especially the Martyr version. I will make the block on the Goblin Guide if our opponent doesn't have another removal spell for it. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of good things coming up. That's the tricky thing about Soul Sisters. It can have some really awkward hands, or you just feel like a bad draft deck. Finally gets us a land off of here. And there's Ajani Strength of Pride. We'll go Mistveil Plains. and then put out the Serra Ascendant, which will most likely get bolted or something, but I'm okay with that. 3 cards in hand, 4 cards in hand now. Typically they could all be burn spells and I guess lose, but it's an Arid Mesa, so now I think we're in decent shape. And Squadron Hawk coming up. That's interesting. I'm going to let it go through. I could just lose here with, 3 bolts now. But I'm going to throw out Ajani. Throw out a Ajani Strength of Pride. This should probably, when we attack in with the Serra Ascendant, it'll probably get a response by like bolting off the Pridemate or something. We'll see what ends up happening. Opponent could just have heavy lands left in hand. So Blessing Mire, worst case scenario is another Searing Blaze. Can crack both of them, huh? Really wants to dig deep. And we have a Deflecting Palm, huh? Which deflects it back to me. Well, that's not the greatest use of a Deflecting Palm. Still 3 cards in hand. He can easily die to 3 burn spells. Monastery Swift Spear. Geez, Ranger is pretty terrible here, too. I think we just go Squadron Hawks and try to really... Lightning Helix on Ajani on the Pridemate. That is weird. All right, so we'll let it go through. I mean, I guess that's fine. But we do have the nuts here with the Soul Warden. And then Squadron Hawk, which ticks us up. And then we get another Squadron Hawk. So ripping that was really good on the Soul Warden. And we'll throw out another one. And just pass back to our opponent. So we should be in decent shape. Our opponent can still get like Runner Burn spell. Yeah, that's what I thought. So Flagstones of Trokair comes down. At this point, what we're going to do is we're just going to solidify this game by going Ranger, which gains us a life. And I'm pretty sure we're going to see a scoop. Our opponent going to kill the Soul Warden. All right, so yep. Thing is, we don't have anything to bring in. I'm not going to bring in Path to Exiles. Our main is pretty good. Like, this might be where our sideboard needs to have a little more flexibility. Because here's where you'd want stuff like Return to the Ranks in the sideboard, or even something like Immortal Servitude would be pretty decent. Like, this list is a lot better with Immortal Servitude. Like, Immortal Servitude was the original card that I used to bring back, because you can put it either on 2 or on 1 with this particular deck. Then Return to the Ranks was a little bit better with the Convoke. But I've had a number of those return. I mean, Proclamation of Rebirth was the original gangster for the being able to bring back stuff. But yeah, Immortal Servitude I think would work the best in this particular list, with the option to go for Squadron Hawks, Pridemates, and Champions, or Martyrs, Serra Ascendants, and Soul Warden, Soul Attendants. But Return to the Ranks also could do very good in this list in the sideboard. All right, anyway, we'll just go ahead and submit this as is, not do any changes. And I think, again, you can mull pretty aggressively towards... Oh, this is pretty good, actually. I'm going to keep this hand because it has 2 Soul Sisters in it and the Ajani's Pridemate, which is very, very reasonable. And it also has this Force of Virtue that can get rid of Squadron Hawks. So we have basically a Rift Bolt. Okay, so opponent's going to eat one of these Soul Attendants for a Rift Bolt. But again, that's not what Burn wants to be doing, is spending resources on a 1/1. So Rift Bolt should kill the Soul Attendant, and it's not going to get any value off of like a Monastery Swift Spear off a Rift Bolt. Be very surprised this goes to the face. Yep. Definitely saw that coming. And there's an Eidolon. So Eidolon is pretty good against us. We're going to Squadron Hawk here. Yeah, Squadron Hawk's kind of bad. Okay, we're going to Squadron Hawk, which is going to do 2 damage to us. And go and get just 2 of them. And then pass the turn. And when our opponent attacks in with the Eidolon, yeah, then we'll throw in the Force of Virtue and block it. So we'll throw away the Squadron Hawk for a Force of Virtue and kill the Eidolon if my opponent does tack in. I don't think my opponent will see it coming either. So Lava Spike does almost as much to my opponent as it does to me. And we'll go to block here. And make that trade. Don't think my opponent's too happy with that trade. And this turn, we're going to be able to get out. Ooh, that is very tempting, just a Martyr. We're just going to go Soul Warden, which does not make any damage, and Ajani's Pridemate, which should get the Soul Warden a bolt. Opponent's down to 14, though, and we haven't even done any damage ourselves. Down to 12. And this should get a bolt on... Oh, Skullcrack. That's okay. It's just 1 life with Skullcrack. Which does make the... It's now definitely not going to play the Martyr this turn. Yeah, kind of weird use for Skullcrack. There just must not be anything else in my opponent's hand. I would see just probably cracking. Yep, cracking to draw a card with the Sunbaked Canyon. But this is going to limit the amount of mana that our opponent has available to... And then a Rift Bolt. Yep. All right, we should be really good. No Skullcrack, so I might just go Squadron Hawk for another... Yeah, it doesn't matter. We could go Martyr, gain... Yeah, I think Martyr's actually pretty good just to sacrifice here. Okay, my opponent's just going to scoop it up. All right, so 3-1. We have 1 more match to go. Want that Mardu Pyromancer game back. We could be 4-0 here going into this last match, but here's what it is. I'll still chalk it up as I don't know. I think I need some practice on mulliganing more aggressively in Modern. I'm still coming from playing a lot of Limited lately, even with London Mulligan, that Limited, mulliganing is not the right answer. But in Modern, I think you need to be very aggressive on the mulligans. Like this hand versus Martyr, or against Mardu Pyromancer would have just been... I mean, Thoughtseize for Auriok Champion would have been tough, but getting the Soul Warden out and then Spectral Processions could probably put enough pressure on our opponent. But again, we're missing the 3rd land drop, which has been a theme for the past couple games. So definitely need to keep our 7 hand. Our opponent does keep the 7 hand as well. And see what we can make out of this hand. So we have a first turn Soul Warden to a second turn Auriok Champion. If we go against Burn again, that'll be good. Looks like we're going against humans, possibly, with the Caverns of Souls. Goblin. We're going against Goblins, which makes this a lot better. So Vile Goblins. They do have a lot of reach with this Goblin deck, where they can dish out a ton of damage. But Soul Warden's always good, and Auriok Champion's always better. And especially Squadron Hawk with Martyr of the Sands to gain a ton of life. So our opponent did use card advantage, though, from the Aether Vial. To what they wanted to be doing is chaining off some of the creatures that can go and tutor up more, like the Goblin Matron. I believe, yeah, Matron was Modern legal now. And they also have another Goblin. So double Aether Vial, they definitely do need to get those specific cards. They can't even use the Caverns of Souls here. And let's just... Yeah, that's a good one. This is going to be brutal, the Auriok Champion. Main board Auriok Champion just definitely mines the salt with a lot of these players. It's just so good in Modern right now. A lot of removal spells are either black or red. Not going to, of course, run out the Soul Warden into a 1-drop Goblin. We're going to be gaining 2 life per Goblin. But again, these Goblins can become quite large with finding Lords. Like the Vile version of Goblins is what it sacrifices on speed. It definitely makes up for reach or range, whatever you want to call the being able to go longer turns. The Martyr is going to be a great draw, or a great. So Windbrisk Heights is also pretty good Spectral Processions. So see what our opponent can do here. They don't run a lot of removal. There is some removal in the form of Goblins themselves that can ping off like Ember Haulers. So Windbrisk Heights here, just to give us more information of what I want to be doing. Hopefully it doesn't find Squadron Hawk, Squadron Hawk, Squadron Hawk. Ajani Strength of Pride is probably the better card to put underneath at this point. I would say with 2 soul. Yep. And all of these can go any order. They're going to get shuffled away. What we're going to do right now is we're just going to throw out a Squadron Hawk. And we can get all 3 of them. It's going to give us some life here unless our opponent has something. They're going to vial in a Goblin. Let's see which Goblin it is. Which is a Munitions Expert, which deals 1 damage to a creature or planeswalker equal to the amount of Goblins you control. So, yes, it will. They're a little bit. Okay, it's going to react to the. Yeah, Soul Warden goes down. And yield away some of these triggers. And this thins back out our deck, puts that Force of Virtue back in our deck, which we do want. And we will get all the Squadron Hawks. And then pass the turn, or do I want to attack in? Feels like I want to start dishing off some damage, but we'll have Auriok Champion can just play. And that's 1 Munitions Expert out of the way. And throw in a Skirk Prospector. So, yeah, our opponent definitely is going big with these vials. So having both vials is probably pretty good in this version of Goblins. The Martyr of Sands is going to gain us a ton of life if I choose to go that route. I think I just want to go Spectral Procession so we can get this Ajani Strength of Pride, because if we can get a big Ajani's Pridemate out, I think that's pretty decent. Just decides to go with Mutavault, attacking in. We'll take the damage. Damage isn't terrible right now. Squadron Hawk can start attacking in. Yeah, everything can stay back. So Serra Ascendant. I think this is reasonable. This play instead. We'll gain a ton of life. $21 life to be exact. And see if our opponent rage quits here. There's probably a lot of ways that can kill. What if our opponent's even running Chain Whirler in this particular build? Okay, we'll pass it off. Because Chain Whirler is brutal. Go ahead and attack with the Squadron Hawk for sure. So we have a 6/6 flying lifelinker. See what our opponent can come up with. Again, we need the matrons not to start chaining. It is a matron. Gets another matron, I'd assume. It's their version of a Squadron Hawk. Thinking on this one. We need to find some more Auriok Champions. Our opponent does need to kill the Windbrisk Heights. Going to get Crankle Mob Boss, which is interesting for sure because that's a lot of mana. And the 2 could get a Warren Instigator. So again, that's pretty interesting for Kranko. However, we have Ajani that can just get rid of artifacts as well, correct? So exile and each artifact. So we'll probably be just dishing off the Ajani Strength of Pride to get rid of the 2 vials, get rid of all the cards out. Opponent needs to kill this Squadron Hawk. Can't let this Windbrisk Heights trigger. 4 and 3. I'm assuming Aether Vial is going to go for a Kranko. Opponent can actually do... they have a lot of... potential here. So didn't go for Matron. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. If we can get this Windbrisk Heights off, I think we just win for the Ajani. Because I think at that point, losing the 2 vials, losing the 4 board state, being stuck with the Kranko. So my opponent has like this damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario. They flash in the Kranko, they lose the Kranko to the Ajani trigger. And I want to do this 0 one time. And maybe Ajani, maybe I'm using Ajani wrong. Yeah, I don't know. We'll test some other builds for sure. But hopefully my opponent can make a decision here. Don't want to edit the video. I'm trying to keep conversation with y'all. Comment section, what other decks am I've missed a lot of the tier 1 decks for sure. I think that currently, like, Tron is almost impossible to beat. Another Goblin Matron. I'm going to just hard cast a Goblin Matron. So, yeah, that's actually pretty rough because my opponent can actually go get another Goblin Matron with the Aether Vial. That Hovel was a good rip. What is this even? Pashlik Mons is a whenever Mons or another Goblin dies, deals 1 damage to any target. Okay, sacrifice and make 2. Okay, we got it out. Living the dream. Kapow. And we're just going to play it safe. And go ahead and 0 Ajani. At this point, yeah, the board state is very favorable at getting rid of those vials. The 2 matrons already used. Oh, we actually did it. All right, we'll pass the turn back to our opponent. So Kranko in hand that can't be cast and a Pashilic Mons, and we have a 6/6 lifelinker. This is now going to be very, very difficult for my opponent to deal with. 1 Musician Expert, Scarab Prospector, Warden Instigator, 2 vials down. Vial at this point would be very, very weak. We're at 55 life total. Yeah, I don't see it possible for my opponent to come back. And there you have it. We get some Ajani action. I don't think we go for Stony Silence or Path to Exile. Like, Path to Exile looks a little bit better in this particular matchup, but we're an anti-aggro deck faced up against an aggro deck. This version of Goblins does feel very similar to one of the matchups that used to be hard for Soul Sisters, which was the Merfolk, but that's where Ajani Strength of Pride does come into play. And I did want to showcase at least once. So definitely achievement unlocked. We zeroed Ajani's Strength of Pride, and it did win us the game. Opponent can bring in possibly some ways to deal with Auriok Champion, like some, what is it, Reality Hemorrhages? Is that the one out of Oath the Gatewash that can... doesn't have a color, or they could bring in the Pirate Spellbomb. I've seen those in sideboards before because humans tend to run Auriok Champion from time to time. However, I'm thinking that they don't have the sideboard slot at the moment. Humans actually did very terrible at the last major tournament at the Pro Tour, whatever you want to call it, Mythic Championship. So, yeah, 4-1 I'll be very happy with this Soul Sisters. Again, we didn't see a lot of tier decks. We saw a lot of decks I haven't seen in a while, like Spirits, the Hogak, of course. I haven't seen Mardu Pyromancer for a while either, and now this Goblins. Definitely pretty cool, the brew, though. So, do we mulligan to an Auriok Champion? Of course we mulligan this one, because we can't keep a 0 lander. This is how you lose Magic, is by getting the no lander. Wonder if my land count wants to be a little bit higher too with the Ajani Strength of Pride and Rangers. So we'll ship it. And we don't get a... I actually think the correct play is Martyr on the bottom. Might be the wrong play to put Martyr, but I think Soul Attendant and Ajani's Pridemate's going to be fine. So there's a Skirk Prospector. No Vial, which is awesome. And we do get a Strength of Pride anyway. And our opponent needs to get a Munitions Expert here to deal with good old Soul Attendant. And unfortunately, though, we are in a bit of a pickle with the Ajani's Pridemate not getting life. That's why I really like the 12 Soul Sisters version. Oh, Ajani's Pridemate is so good in that deck. Gets huge, and same with the Archangel Thunes. So typically, I'm leaning towards that, possibly Martyrs in the sideboard. And people in the comment section of the last video also suggested running the Knight Captain of Eos. And it's just a Chalice on 1. So I cannot cast 1 mana spells. Yes, Chalice on 1. But Chalice on 1 isn't too terrible. Mistveil Plains comes to play tap. Nope, don't want that. Did find our 4th land, though. I can cast a 2. So people bringing in Chalice is typical, but it's kind of bad, especially when they used to run the Return of the Ranks. I used to love when people brought in Chalice. And now no Aether Vials for my opponent either. I don't know if they want them. I got to decide if I want Mistveil Plains into play tapped or if I want Spectral Processions. So what does my opponent have that's a 1-drop too? It doesn't seem like my opponent did have many 1-drops. So if we look back at the last game. So we got the Mog War Marshal, which is going to pump up the Ajani's Pridemate. Does give a blocker. I think we want to go for, like, best case scenario is another 2-drop that we can run into here and cast it. Not another Flagstones, so we'll go ahead and tap the Flagstones. Play a Flagstones, keep this one. And get a Plains. Yeah, we're going to go with Spectral Processions, since we have another land. This pumps up our good old Soul Attendant. Our opponent just scoops it up. So must have had a bad hand in hand, and Ajani's Pridemate is just going to get out of control. So 4-1 with the Soul Sisters list. I'll try to do an updated list with it, with showing the Archangel Thune. I think Ajani's Strength of Pride does want to be in that list as well. I also want to try No Ketra's Monument deck eventually with a different way to build it. We'll have to revisit that one some other time as well. But the good news is I'm having fun with the brews. I'm having fun playing Modern, which is a lot different from June and July. June and July is pretty much done with Magic. Played a lot of Dodo Underlords. Still love Dodo Underlords. Still wanting to play a lot of Dodo Underlords. If there's a audience for it, I'd love to stream Dota Underlords or just have some kind of strategy with Dota Underlords. But Magic is fun again, and Modern's fun again to me, which is a good breath of fresh air. So we'll be actually hitting Pauper very hard too. I do want to try out some Pauper decks. Pauper is still a format I absolutely adore, and I haven't even revisited it since they made a bunch of the paper cards on MTGO and then kind of solidified the format into one format. And I think that'll be a fun video series to try to find a bunch of different Pauper brews or Pauper decks that we can play. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video, and comments appreciated for Soul Sisters brews or anything else in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.